The way that I would model the problem of porn addiction is as follows. Porn addiction is a symptom of something being misaligned in your life. That misalignment causes a void in positive emotion. But the thing is, the human mind requires a healthy amount of positive emotion or dopamine to go through life. And in the absence of that positive emotion, it tends to gravitate towards coping mechanisms like pornography. This misalignment could potentially exist in one of these 5 fundamental areas of your life. These areas directly impact your mental health, your mood, and overall satisfaction with life. If any of these 5 areas are not operating optimally, then you are going to feel deprived of positive emotion in life. And as a consequence, you are going to rely on pornography as a coping mechanism. So in this video, we are going to explore what these areas of your life are and how exactly should you optimize them. Because in my opinion, once you optimize these key 5 areas, pornography loses its appeal and becomes something that you are no longer interested in. So let's get right into it. The first key area that needs to be optimized is your diet. If you are someone who eats processed food like chips, soda, energy drinks, burgers, then you become highly susceptible to relapsing. This is because of 2 specific reasons. Firstly, fast food activates the same reward pathways that porn does. And this is why you might have noticed that your cravings for pornography are greater on days when you have eaten highly processed foods like cake. Secondly, processed food negatively impacts your mental health. It has shown to increase anxiety and depression. It causes inflammation in your body and brain. It also negatively impacts your metabolism. And I could go on and on and on. The consequence of all these things is that you are just not going to be feeling good. You're not going to feel productive. And you're going to find yourself increasingly gravitating towards cheap dopamine in the form of pornography. If you want to almost immediately drop your cravings for pornography significantly, then you need to undergo a diet revolution. You pretty much need to cut off most processed foods from your diet. These are basically things that come in packets and have dozens of unnatural ingredients, and you need to replace them with whole natural foods. These are single ingredient items that do not undergo much processing. Things like chicken, meat, honey, fish, eggs, dates, fruits, veggies. Within a week of making these dietary changes, you are going to notice a significant difference in your overall mood, motivation levels, and your impulse control. And when you're in such a healthy, positive state of mind, you naturally do not gravitate towards artificial sources of dopamine. Additionally, it has been my experience that going for a period of 15 to 18 hours without food on a regular basis is going to further lower your cravings for pornography. For those of you who are unaware, this is known as intermittent fasting, and having worked with dozens of porn addicts, I have found that most people do report quite a significant drop in urges to watch porn and quite a significant improvement in their impulse control when they incorporate fasting as part of their dietary regimen. You've often found yourself in this mental tug of war between your limbic system, which is the reward system of your brain that makes you crave a quick dopamine hit in the form of pornography, and then there's your prefrontal cortex, which is your rational, long-term thinking region of the brain, which is asking you to resist the temptation of pornography. If you are sleep deprived, or the quality of your sleep is not too good, or you're just sleeping at irregular times, then you're greatly reducing the functioning of your prefrontal cortex. And as a consequence of that, you are weakening your self-control and could potentially relapse. Most people who are trying to recover from porn addiction almost treat sleep as secondary. They realize that sleep optimization is kind of good, but they do not understand just how important it actually is for overcoming this addiction. After working with several clients and tracking the data on sleep, I can almost predict when a person is going to relapse purely based on this sleep data. In most cases, when people sleep much later at night for just 2 or 3 days, they end up relapsing. That is how strong the correlation between relapses and sleep quality is. I'm going to give you a quick set of rules that are going to have a massive impact on your overall quality of sleep. This is not an exhaustive list, just a high-level overview. So if you're seriously looking to improve the quality of your sleep, then I would highly recommend one of Andrew Huberman's podcasts on sleep optimization. So the first rule is to fix a bedtime and go to bed at that same time every single day, including the weekends. I cannot stress this enough, just how important this one change is for the quality of your sleep and your recovery from porn addiction. The next rule is to get plenty of sunlight during the early parts of the day and especially during the mornings. Sunlight signals to your brain to release the right cocktail of neurotransmitters and hormones that get you feeling alert, moving, and productive. The third rule is to avoid bright lights at least 1 to 2 hours before you go to bed. Bright lights prevent the release of melatonin, which is a hormone which helps you fall asleep. If you really need to use your phone at night, then I would suggest that you lower its brightness all the way down and you turn on your blue light filter. The last rule is to have your meals at fixed times in the day. Fix a time for lunch, fix a time for dinner. If you eat your meals at random times or you're just snacking all day long, then you're going to disrupt and confuse your biological clock, not feeling very rested, and you might suffer from nighttime insomnia. If you wake up and you absolutely have no form of a structure to your day, you don't really know what to do and when to do, you are just a leaf floating through the wind, then you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position to relapse. What a predictable routine or schedule offers is a path to follow, and it also offers alternative sources of healthy earned dopamine. What I would recommend is that today before going to bed, design somewhat of a structure as to what tomorrow is going to look like. Make sure that for large chunks of your day, you are pursuing meaningful goals. Because when you make progress towards something that you find meaningful, then your brain secretes dopamine. You feel uplifted, your cravings for pornography are greatly reduced. If you're struggling to come up with a routine for your day, then what I would recommend is start with a 3-activity approach. Pick one activity that is physical in nature. It could be running, lifting weights, or playing a sport, and fix a specific time slot for it. The second activity that you could do is your professional work or academics, and again, fix a time slot for it. The third activity could be a hobby, something like reading or learning an instrument, or it could be working on a passion project, and once again, you fix the exact time for it. If at each moment of your day you have purpose, a meaningful goal that you're marching towards, then you're constantly receiving a healthy supply of dopamine. On the other hand, if you wake up with nothing planned, you're just bored, isolated, then you are much more likely to gravitate towards artificial stimulation through pornography. Your brain is highly sensitive to sexual stimulus. It is an evolutionary mechanism built within us to be stimulated by things that are sexual. This is what encourages mating behavior and allows for our genes to be passed on. This is especially true during the initial stages of your recovery from porn addiction. You're just going to be highly sensitive to sexual stimulus. And if you are triggered by the sexual stimulus, then those regions of your brain that are just so used to the dopamine hit from porn, they are going to light up and give rise to cravings. My philosophy when it comes to cravings is that prevention is better than cure. It is far easier to prevent the craving from occurring than to fight it off. And if you want to prevent these cravings, you would have to modify your environment such that there are no visual or auditory triggers around you. This could mean that you delete all pornographic material that you have downloaded and collected for years. You remove all the apps where triggers frequently come by. You get rid of all your accounts on pornography sites. It could also mean that you stop going to certain places where you're going to encounter provocatively dressed individuals. Because remember, your brain does not distinguish between digital visual sexual stimulation or in real life visual sexual stimulation. At first, when some of my clients are introduced to this concept of environment modification, they're almost a bit shocked by the amount of things they have to avoid, including movies with sexual scenes and video games with hypersexualized characters. But once you truly form an environment that aids your recovery rather than works against it, you will realize that all these sacrifices are worth it in the grand scheme of things. There is a region of your brain that is responsible for generating willpower. It is called the anterior midcingulate cortex. We all have this region of the brain, so willpower is not something that just some people possess and others don't. However, the interesting thing is that you could increase or decrease the size of this region of the brain and thereby improve or worsen your willpower and self-control. One of the ways to shrink this region of your brain is through hyperstimulation and just constantly being in your comfort zone. They've actually found that this region of the brain is smaller in people who are obese. So it is very likely that long-term porn use has also reduced your volume of this willpower generating region of the brain. In order to ensure that you never relapse again due to having weak self-control is by regrowing this region of the brain. And the way to grow it is by doing things that you find challenging and don't really want to do. In short, it's basically by getting out of your comfort zone. I'm going to give you a few ways that you could experience these challenges. The first one could be something like taking cold showers. A 2 to 3 minute long cold shower is an uncomfortable experience. However, it has a bunch of positive effects such as improved mood and lower anxiety and stress levels. The next thing you could do is perform a high intensity interval training workout and try to push yourself a little past your comfort zone. Interval training is a workout method when you put in short bursts of all out intense effort followed by brief periods of recovery. This is also great for improving your dopamine receptor sensitivity. The last suggestion that I have is meditation. You might be wondering how that is challenging or uncomfortable, but trust me, if you are someone who has never meditated before or you're just so used to a hyper-stimulated life, then you're going to have a hard time meditating even for 3 to 5 minutes. Additionally, meditation is shown to increase the density in the connective tissue between the various regions of your brain. Hey, my name is Jibreal Khan and I've helped dozens of men overcome porn addiction using tried and tested systems based on neuroscience and behavioral psychology. The best part is that these systems do not rely on willpower, which is a fleeting resource and it is bound to fade away in the long run. Some of the people that I work with have been addicted to pornography for as long as 20 years and could barely go a week without porn. So if you would like to work one-on-one with me to overcome porn addiction, then make sure that you click on the link in the description and book a call with me. This call can be completely anonymous if you prefer.